further ado, I'm going to present our first presenter. We have Rene, who is going to be talking about using Certify and Emates in his classroom. I'll let him share his screen and get going, but thank you so much for everybody for being here. And Rene, your first step.
Let me just move the little thing over to the side there. All right. So welcome everybody. Today we're going to be introducing you, I'm going to be introducing you to two very powerful tools, UCertify and myemates.org. Whether you're teaching IT, networking, cybersecurity, I mean, I teach all those things, or any type of tech related course, these platforms are definitely going to help you structure that learning resource and enhance that student engagement and comprehension. The session is going to be primarily focused on UCertify, and then we'll walk you through its interface, some of its key features, and how to manage the course effectively. I've had to learn this semester how to use it since I'm used to Pearson and Cengage and even McGraw-Hill. We're also going to explore the myemates.org website, which is going to offer those interactive learning activities that help the students grasp the complex concepts. Things like subnetting and IP addressing are one of the things I love to use it for. By the end, you should have a really strong understanding of these concepts. So this is the objectives here. We're going to navigate UCertify, set up and manage courses. We're going to monitor students' progress, request accommodations, apply best practices, and utilize myemates.org for your interactive purposes. Now, what is UCertify? And basically, this is a cloud-based learning platform that you're going to use, and it's designed for IT certifications like CompTIA, Network Plus, Security Plus, even Cisco and AWS. I think there's some Microsoft stuff in there. I haven't really taught any of those things, but it does offer that structured learning experience for the students. It does have pre-assessments, interactive lessons, hands-on labs, and practice tests, and it has a final post-assessment, to gauge their understanding at the end of the course, and this can be used as your final exam for that course. As instructors, we have to, we will have access to those detailed student progress tracking metrics, and, we'll have access to like syllabus guides and PowerPoint presentations when we're teaching a course. So you won't be left in the dark. You'll definitely have the tools you need to make the experience holistic. Now, this here is what UCertify looks like from the perspective of the actual class. When you have a dashboard and you can select the course. I did block out some things because this is a current course that I'm teaching at the moment, which is a Network Plus course. But you can see that the dashboard is your home base, and you'll see things on the left side for your resources, enrolling your learners, managing those learners as well. On the top right, you can see that there's some more tools, and you can even view things from their perspective, the learner's perspective. You can enroll the learners over here as well. And there's archived classes and active ones at the moment. It's funny though, but because I'm currently teaching two, a Security Plus and a Network Plus, but it only says active one. So I'm not really sure what the one is for and why it doesn't show two. But what I can say is this will contain everything that you need to basically get started. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do when you're setting up your course is, well, the first step is setting up those start and end dates for your section. Unlike other LMS platforms, UCertify doesn't really allow setting due dates for the specific assignments. So you're going to need to do that with your LMS provider. I'm currently using D2L, which is also known as Blackboard. And so what I do is I have the students enroll into the course. They're the institution that I teach at, Broward College, because I teach at Miami-Dade as well for this. They do the same thing where it basically is like a single sign-on situation. So they click the link and it kind of enrolls them in there. It asks them if this is the section key. They just say yes, and then they go ahead and move forward. It's pretty straightforward. If you do have issues, there is tech support with that. You can otherwise provide some kind of access code through a shopping cart link that they provide you on their website and enroll them that way. Now, a great feature about this UCertify platform is that it gives the students the option of a mobile application, web application, tablet application, application. So you get kind of access anywhere, right? And you can manage the course only really from online. You can't do it through the app. I really wish you could, but it didn't really give me that option. The enrollment options will allow those single sign-ons. You have the option to change the theme of your platform so it can be dark mode, easier on the eyes, and you can get those weekly progress reports. Now, what's inside the course structure? You can see here, this is when you actually access the course. There are pre-assessments to help the student. Let me put on my highlighter tool if I can. Sorry. I have a highlighter tool here. There you go. Got a little mouse highlighter tool for you can see things. We have a pre-assessment here that's going to help to evaluate that baseline knowledge for the students before they dive into the course material. They do have interactive lessons. This is going to include their reading materials, their videos, and quizzes. And then they're going to have the hands-on labs that are going to simulate those real-world exercises and practice skills. And then, of course, once they get a better understanding, they can take on those practice tests and see how they do. In case they feel like they're weak in some areas, it's going to definitely prepare them for those certification exams. Now, the post-assessment is here. It's generally going to be available once they've met a certain mastery level. Because I'm not an actual student, mine says 0%, but theirs will increase as they complete those assignments. Now, the glossary will give them a quick reference to important terms and concepts that they've come across in their readings to help expand their knowledge. And then they can, of course, review with notes and highlighted stuff that they've, bookmarked within the reading, so they can kind of review those notes of theirs. Now, this here is an example of the student area, right? So I've blocked out their names for FERPA reasons, but you can see this is a real current one right here. And it's a very valuable feature for us instructors. We can manage them through the ellipses that you see here on the right side. We can see their current readiness progress. Right now, my students have about 1 week left in the class, and I can see that some of these students are only 51% ready. They're not really ready. So I've encouraged them to reach out to the services that they provide at the college for tutoring, and perhaps they can, explain to me what's going on, and I can help them get, fast track to the end at this point. But essentially, this area will allow you to check out their current progress and their grades. So if you click on the circle area here, the green area, it will bring you to it will break down each of their assignments and how they did on those assignments. Now, the resources that I mentioned before, UCertify provides amazing resources for educators. I'm actually kind of impressed. This is the first time, like I said, this semester that I'm using their resources. They give you ready-to-use presentations that align with the course material the students are reading. I recommend that you kind of open it up and look through it. It's pretty comprehensive, and maybe add some notes so that you can kind of help refresh your mind on some of the topics, because they kind of get in there pretty deep on the topics. I mean, I've got a Network Plus certification, and it kind of, some areas there, I was like, okay, it's been a while since I read this, so I had to put a few pointers in there. I was like, okay, and I got it now. It didn't take too much, but it's there. They do have a structured 12-week schedule that you can kind of use to structure the lesson. Now, of course, 12 weeks is not that hard for us. Professors that have been working at least more than a year to kind of stretch it out to 16 or maybe decrease it to 8. You just got to modify a few things. But the 12-week schedule they give is pretty helpful. They have an objective mapping in here as well that'll allow you to kind of look at the objectives and help to focus more on the ones that you find that your students are kind of struggling in. I like to give my students a quiz somewhere in the middle of the semester for extra credit, of course, that kind of brings down the anxiety levels for them. And then I can kind of judge where they're kind of suffering a bit. And, it's kind of helpful when you see those domains and which one they're not doing so well in. And, you can then focus your lessons more on that. There is a help and support to assist with any questions that you have. You'll see that up here on the top right area. where you can click on that button. It'll kind of bring you to the ticketing area and you can ask support. They usually respond within 24 hours, so it's pretty responsive service there. I had to recently reach out to them because one of my students needed accommodations. They needed extra time on exams and quizzes, and I found that online they said that you could do it through this ellipses area, but it doesn't actually provide that option there anymore. So you really do have to go through the support ticket. The good news is they were able to give me that help. They just asked which student was it, how much accommodations do you need to give them. I told them, and they managed to apply that right away. So it's better to get that done early to avoid any of those delays, and just kind of ask the students on the first day, hey, if anybody has accommodations, reach out to me on email so I can get your accommodations set up. That way they don't miss out on anything. Now, let's talk about myemates.org, because, when I first joined up with Insight, that what is it, National Cybersecurity Training and Education Center, they introduced me to this website, and I have found that it has definitely been a very helpful tool. There's a few little hiccups here and there, but generally it's 99% awesome, especially for networking and cybersecurity. You're going to love it. I got to tell you, adding this interactive aspect of it, and I've questioned my students, they said it really helps their understanding more than you might think. My students mastered subnetting within a week and a half. I mean, they pretty much had it down. I had them doing it by hand on the chalkboard, or on the dry erase board, but they were able to do it. They were able to figure out how many hosts and how many networks we needed and how to do it, how many, what should our subnet be, and it worked out pretty great. So what is Emates, right? Well, it's just an educational platform. It's designed to help those students grasp those topics, with an interactive animations. Now, this was originally developed by, I don't know how to say his last name, but Michael Wazan or whatever. You guys might be able to say that one for me. From Brookdale. So him and John Sands, they kind of developed this, and it's developed under that NSF grant. So I'm glad that it's been developed, and I hope it continues to stay on there. But it does provide those visualization and hands-on activities. Some of the key features that you'll find with my Emates is those interactive simulations for cybersecurity training that break down the principles of cybersecurity. You'll see topics like network security, cryptography, threat analysis. It's basically designed for both entry-level learners and even for intermediate and advanced learners. I think it really helps with that. It's still growing. I believe they're adding more content to it constantly, which is definitely a great thing to do. It is web-based, so you don't have to install anything, and you can engage those lessons at any time. They encourage you to use it with your organization. You don't need permission. They appreciate people using it in their classrooms. Now, some of the benefits for faculty and students is that visual learning has proven to improve retention. Animations and, to make cybersecurity easier to understand the concepts. It's great for students who are struggling with just pure text-based presentations or content. It can be used to supplement those lectures and reinforce those key topics. It's encouraged my students to actively participate in the activities, because a lot of these Emates, interactive lessons, you can actually play around with the buttons and test things out. So like for the subnetting, we would have a challenge and have them put in whichever values are correct. And it was great to see them get interactive with that. And it's great if you group them up in pairs and see which team wins and offer them a little reward, extra credit, a little bit here and there, 1/4% or 0.5%, whatever is up to you, But how do you integrate this, right? We can integrate this by doing it alongside those PowerPoint presentations or textbook readings. If you're currently showing a PowerPoint and you see that, you're going over a concept, I notice that I look at my students and they seem a little lost a little bit. And then I say, you guys are having a hard time understanding this. And they're honest with me. They're like, yeah, it's a little hard. And I said, then I got one for you. Then I pull up the Emates and their eyes just light up and they were like, this seems a lot easier. Why don't we just do this? I said, because we still got to cover the PowerPoints. I think you need to see it this way and that way. You kind of need to see how they work together. And it does work. The complex concepts like encryption and data breaches and firewalls are easier to understand on the interactive part of my Emates, but you still got to cover those little nuances that they may not cover in my Emates. I mean, although it's great, there's going to be some great details that they may not cover. For example, if you're talking about cables in networking, they're not going to explain what 100 base T means. What does the base mean? They need to know that it's baseband. What does the T mean? They need to know that's twisted pair. Otherwise, who's going to tell them, right? You got to have that written down, or you got to verbalize it. Now, I always revisit these animations before the exams because I want to make sure that they have that, that extra touch up on their knowledge and make sure that they're ready. Oh, thank you. I'm almost done. I got one more presentation, one more PowerPoint, I promised. So Emates is free. You don't have to worry about it. It works across all devices since it is web-based. So make sure that you take advantage of it. So just some final thoughts here. It's a valuable tool for that cybersecurity education. You have those interactive animations. It complements your lectures and your traditional learning materials, and it's free to use, so integrate it into your course, okay? I hope that was informative, and I hope you guys like both the introduction to UCertify and myemates.org.
Thank you so much, Rene. That's awesome.
No problem.
Yeah, and just for everybody who's presenting, we're giving everybody about 12 to 13 minutes since we had one drop off. So that'll give you a little bit of extra buffer because I know 10 minutes is not enough to actually cover what we're trying to talk about today. So,
I tried.
No, you did great, Rene. It is. It's wonderful. And everybody knows we're going to post these and we'll dig into it, right? That's the whole thing is we want to create that network where you can have those conversations and learn more from each other. So I appreciate your time. So our next presenter is Elizabeth Rasnick, and she is at the Center for Cybersecurity at the University of West Florida. And she is going to be presenting, I'm so excited about this. This is one of my favorite things on the planet, Sherlock Holmes, social engineer. So over to you, Elizabeth.
Okay. Hi. So I have my my little cohorts here, right? I love looking at cybersecurity as an interdisciplinary field. It's not technical. It uses a lot of technical tools, but it's not really a technical field. A lot of the underpinnings of cyber have been around quite literally for centuries. So I look at cybersecurity as interdisciplinary. And that's really what this is all about, the idea that a character like Sherlock Holmes can teach us social engineering. And I love having little props. So I have a little Bassett in a little detective hat, and I've got my little owl. He's all done up. He's got a little magnifying glass, right, and his little deer stalker and everything. So I love bringing props into it too to make it seem not as scary and as technical, right? These are soft, fuzzy little things. I mean, how technical can they be, really, right? So Sherlock Holmes teaching social engineering really is because I love solving puzzles, and I was listening to Sherlock Holmes while I was, I think, grading for one of my certified ethical hacking classes, and I had Sherlock Holmes books being read into my earphones, and I kept hearing the character do these things, and I thought, he just social engineered that information out of the person. He shouldn't have gotten access to the information he just got. He just social engineered it out of them, right? So then the story goes on, and sure enough, it happens again. So then I'm listening to another story, and it happens again. And it occurred to me that we can make cybersecurity truly interdisciplinary if we start introducing cyber concepts in other classes, like in a literature class where they're reading English literature, like the Sherlock Holmes stories, or in history classes where they're looking at, battles from ancient Rome or even from the American Revolution. We can look at some of the cryptography that was used back then, which of course was not computationally based, right? It was hand coded. So we can really start including cybersecurity concepts in lots and lots of different classes. Let me give you the in-depth view of how Sherlock Holmes teaches social engineering so you can really get a good feel for how easy this is. So I'll use one of the stories there's a story called The Blue Carbuncle. And the Blue Carbuncle is this giant blue gemstone that this, heiress lady was staying at a fancy hotel in London, of course, because that's where Sherlock Holmes is. So she's staying at this fancy hotel, and it's in her jewelry box because, of course, the well-to-do ladies of the day traveled with these really fancy jewelry boxes. And she had, of course, her lady's maid traveling with her. And so her lady's maid is cleaning up the room while the lady is at tea and realizes that this giant blue gemstone is gone. So the alarm is raised, and of course, Sherlock Holmes is brought in to find out what's going on. So at the same time, somehow this giant bird turkey, back then, they had to get turkeys right when you were going to eat them. This giant turkey and this weird busted up dusty hat winds up at Sherlock Holmes's house. They're not quite sure what happened because Sherlock and Watson weren't there. So to make the story, because we have to shorten it, right? To make the story short, it turns out that the gemstone is actually found in the throat of this bird. So now they have to figure out where the bird came from to figure out who stole the gemstone and shoved it down the bird's throat. Sherlock and Watson go to the local poultry seller to figure out where the bird originally came from. And this guy doesn't want to talk to them. He doesn't want to give up the information. He doesn't want anything to do with them at all. So Sherlock turns to Watson and says, well, that means you lose the bet. I get to keep my half crown or whatever it was. And this poultry guy is so annoyed with Sherlock asking these questions, he's willing to cough up the information just because he thinks he's going to help Watson win this bet. So that's Sherlock Holmes socially engineering this information out of the guy that should never have given it up. And the information he gave up was the customer's name, the customer's address, how much he paid for the bird. So in terms of modern equivalent, that's the customer database. He gave up his customer database with the customer's information, name and address. You were not supposed to be giving that stuff out, but he managed to get it out of this guy. So that's one story, right? And there are several other cases within, or several other occurrences within that particular story where Sherlock gets information that he really should not get a hold of. That's a quick example. Another story, Sherlock Holmes needs to get into a house because he knows somewhere in that house is what his client is looking for. It's a stolen item that's being hidden in this house. His client has hired him to find the stolen item. So in order to get into the house, he pretends to discover that a fire has been lit outside the house. And so everybody in the house, because remember, it's Victorian times and they don't have really good fire squadrons or anything. So everybody comes rushing out of the house. He goes in to pretending to help make sure everybody's out of the house. That buys him enough time to be able to see where the item was hidden in the house. And so he's able to find it. So he socially engineered the information there by scaring everyone into thinking there was a fire. And that gave him the opportunity to see where the hidden information was, where the hidden item was. There's also a case called the Dancing Men, where there's actually a code that's used. It's a bunch of images of little stick figures. And so it's got all these stick figures, and the messages in these stick figures keep being left all over this area, and it keeps scaring all of the people there. Nobody realizes that one of the main characters understands what those stick characters actually means. So now we've got a story where Sherlock Holmes is actually doing some encryption. So it's another way that we're building in cybersecurity into a discussion using Sherlock Holmes. So I use Sherlock Holmes not just for social engineering, but as a way of sort of getting cybersecurity ideas into other classes. Right. So it really is interdisciplinary, and it helps really kind of engage all of the other subjects into the topic. So if it's the encryption, now you can talk about math and how that comes into it. If it's the English literature, if it's history, right, like the history of when Sherlock Holmes was alive, or if you're looking at the history of encryption, that goes back as long as people have been trying to hide messages from each other. So which really is before recorded history kind of thing. So look at different ways of engaging cybersecurity in other courses, or bringing other courses into your cybersecurity education, into those discussions, so that it makes it more interesting. And then, use whatever kinds of props to engage that discussion so that it seems less intimidating, especially if you're dealing with a group that is a little techno shy, or a little concerned about being overwhelmed by the math behind some of what's going on. So I think that takes me to time.
Thank you. Yeah, I love these low tech implementations of teaching cyber. I think it's a lot more accessible to, especially some of like my freshman students even that are in their tech classes, but then they're a little intimidated by something that sounds so tech like cyber. So it was really cool. Okay, any questions for Elizabeth? Well, awesome. Thank you so much again. If anybody does have questions, and I put this in the chat, there is breakout rooms for every. Oh, I'm going to introduce our next presenter, John. I see he's on here. He is going to be talking about some of our favorite topics within AI. So I'm going to turn it over to him to give us a little talk on his stuff. So thank you very much for being on.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Hopefully you can see what I'm seeing now. All right. Yeah, so I want to share about a tool that I created to help me teach about LLM prompt injection. I was actually asked by our cyber team to put something together regarding how AI and cybersecurity intersect. So I basically wanted to create some sort of hands-on learning experience. So this is what I put together as a result of that request, and then kind of shared with the cyber team. So I've actually put this up on Clark, mapped to some learning outcomes from the CAECD and the NICE components, if it's helpful to kind of see where this fits into the broader curriculum. But the primary product for this assignment is actually over on GitHub. So you can find it there if you want to use it yourself, or just follow along as I present. So the basic idea of this application is it's something that perhaps HR folks might use to automatically rate or review resumes that are submitted. So I'm not proposing this as something anyone should actually do, but you could perhaps imagine an application that does this. So this is a tool basically that you can launch and run locally that will then demonstrate some prompt injection and other web application vulnerabilities. So I'm going to start off just by showing how this works. So it's a very simple application. Basically, there's an apply page where you can drop in your name. So if I say I'm Charlie, we can then upload a resume of some kind. So I'm going to pick Charlie's resume, and then Charlie can apply for a position. And after a moment, this should direct me to a nice thank you page. Thank you for submitting your application. And then the HR folks on the back end have a different view of the system where they can see the applicants. If I refresh this page, we should see Charlie's resume. has been uploaded. And then these resumes get automatic grades. So Charlie's resume got a grade of C that was assigned by a large language model. We also have some others. Alice and Bob are already in the system, and they don't have very good resumes, unfortunately. So basically what I'm trying to demonstrate here is what an LLM-powered application could look like. So we're all familiar, I think, at this point with chatbots where you actually type into a box and then see text get generated. This application actually does all that behind the scenes. And there's new opportunities, of course, for vulnerabilities anytime we're using that complex of a system in the background. So the way we can demonstrate this is I have another resume for Mallory. So we'll upload this, press apply. She should see basically the same thing happen. We get this thank you. And when I look at the applicants now from the back-end view, we see that Mallory's resume was excellent. She got a grade A. But if we actually look at the content of Mallory's resume, she has no education of any kind. And under work experience, she's been unemployed since 2009. So something is off here. Basically, this application isn't behaving in the way that we would want it to. So this tool can be used in different ways, but what I had students do was basically try to craft a resume that could, while not being very high quality for a cyber position, would get you an A grade in this system, basically demonstrating prompt injection in an AI-powered application. So the way this actually works, I tried to craft basically the simplest app that I could come up with, because one of the challenges I find when I'm teaching about these technical concepts is we've basically been adding on complexity to our computer system since about 1970. And it can be hard to kind of peel back all the layers and actually figure out what's going on. So I really wanted this to just be a single file, quick little Python application. So I chose to use Flask for this to basically just serve a couple of endpoints, like you saw there, apply, and then the backend view for the applicants, store the state of the application just in a little in-memory dictionary, and then spell out how does this work? So we have a prompt like you would pass to something like ChatGPT, except this gets run, as I said, internally, and then we just get a single letter grade back and then present that in our user interface. So essentially what happens is when a user uploads a resume, their resume gets attached to this prompt, and then we get back a grade for that resume that then gets stored and presented to users. So the challenge is how can we craft a resume that tricks this system into scoring highly, but isn't actually a high quality resume. So from there, it's basically just a standard Flask application. You have a couple of pages where we accept the file, say thanks for submitting, and then generate the list of applicants. So that's how the application actually works. The entire thing is 178 lines long. So students, if they want to, can have access to this, go through the code, figure out how it works, and then try to discern potential areas for vulnerability. So they can craft their own attacks against this if they want to. We can also talk through how we might prevent some of these attacks. So this application is vulnerable to LLM prompt injection. Of course, that's what it's designed for. But then I also didn't do a ton of work to try to protect it from some of the classic vulnerabilities. So there's also the opportunity to exploit something like cross-site scripting here if students want to do that. And I had this set up as kind of an interactive thing. So the server is actually running, students can submit resumes, and then we can see what students are submitting to kind of break the system, analyze what the vulnerabilities are, and then think together about ways we could improve the system to make it more secure, or perhaps just identify there's certain things here that are just weaknesses of having your tool powered by AI that we have to be aware of. All right, so that's the application. I was actually hoping to have some time for questions, and it looks like I do. So if there are any questions, I will stop sharing my screen and I'll field any of those.
What class do you teach this in, or do you teach this in a couple of different classes?
Yeah, so this in particular, I used actually for a sort of specialized seminar for our cyber team. So they meet in the evenings and do things, you know, like get ready for competitions and things like that. And they wanted to learn a little bit more about the intersection between AI and cyber. So part of the challenge of a presentation like that is you have first-year students through seniors, very different levels of technical ability. So I wanted something that everyone could kind of see and understand, be able to interact with, but have something meaty enough that if you're, an upper division student, you aren't just bored with it. You have some things you can think through and learn as well. So I could envision it being used really anywhere in the curriculum where you want to talk about AI, cybersecurity, and web app security in particular.
Yep.
Great. Any other questions?
Well, thank you, John. I really appreciate it. And again, we're going to be posting everything in a Google Drive so that people can access it, as well as contact information if you want to meet up with the folks that are presenting along the way. So appreciate that. That's really interesting. I'm actually going to turn my Cyber Club onto that. So we're going to move on to our next presentation, which is Mary Wallingsford. She is the Networking Plus and Cisco Networking Instructor at Anne Arundel Community College. So Mary, welcome and thank you so much. You can go ahead and share your screen and get started on your presentation. And if you're speaking, Mary, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. I am here to talk about Beyond the Classroom and clubs. I'm the club advisor for 2 of our clubs at Anne Arundel Community College. We have a cyber defense club and we have a women in cybersecurity club. I did a survey with some other institutions. I'm actually going to be sending out a wider or broader survey, hoping to collect some more data about things that we can do with students outside of the classroom to help prepare them to find jobs, because obviously just getting a degree isn't enough. So clubs, competitions, certifications, things like that also help students and get those jobs. So I wanted to focus on clubs and activities that students can do in clubs. I am not going to claim any of this as mine. These are resources that I've collected over the years. On LinkedIn, I get lots of great ideas for club activities. In the survey that I did, these are just some of the clubs that I've had other schools come back and tell me that they have at their institutions. And again, I'm going to be presenting, I believe, at the CAE Symposium on this similar topic in the future. But this is going to dive a little bit deeper into some of those activities that folks from other institutions have responded back with things that they're doing. And then I have a collection of things that I've come up with as well. So some of the activities where students are engaged, having speakers come talk to those clubs. I put links to CISA and Cyber Command's forms to request speakers that can come into your classrooms or your clubs. Competitions, Jake Mahevic has done a great job in cataloging all of the competitions that are out there and that are available for clubs to participate in. There's, of course, self-learning that students are doing in the clubs. Another institution has conferences that they actually host at their institution to give students the experience to present research or things that they've created, posters or presentations. And then, of course, hands-on activities. And that's kind of what the next couple of slides are going to talk more about. Oops. So one of the things that I think our club likes to do is things that are, fun. We have right now the folks in our cyber defense club and women in cybersecurity club like to play games. And so this is just a list of some popular games that are out there, ones that I've played, I've not played. So Again, I don't take any credit for any of these, and I'm not going to guarantee that, any of these are fantastic because I haven't done them all, but I have done things like backdoors and breaches, and the some of the Jeopardy games. And I can show you a couple of those if I have time toward the end, but I just wanted to give you kind of a list. This is a resource here. This is another one that I found on LinkedIn. These are some online labs for specific cybersecurity roles like SOC analyst or vulnerability management analyst, pen tester. Just caution, please read what these labs are doing. I actually have some additional information at the bottom of the slide with videos on how to set them up. But some of the labs are actually pretty impressive. This is an example of just one of them. This is the, I believe the first one. They're just walking you through how to set up your VM, how to set up the, I guess, attack, and it walks you through, and there's a couple of videos in here as well. So it's, these are, I think, pretty decent online labs that are available. I also got this off of LinkedIn. I thought this was a really great compilation of all the project ideas that clubs and your classes can do. I don't have links specifically to any or all of these, but just giving you an idea of some of the things or activities that those clubs can be doing outside of the classroom. So I had to split it across 2 pages because it was so many. So hopefully you're familiar with quite a few of these. And if not, hopefully it gives you some ideas about some new possibilities. So just to go through a couple of the websites, just to give you an idea of some of the links that are out here. This is a walkthrough of the vulnerability scans. It gives you sort of step-by-step instructions on how to do that. So that's why I like these. This one actually comes from Palo Alto Networks, but what they're using is actually the same information, I believe, that malware trafficanalysis.net uses. And I don't know if anybody's used it before, but this is a pretty good website for analyzing network traffic analysis. And we actually use this in our network forensics course. I put a link to that Cyber Competitions Atlas here. So this is the map of all of the competitions that are out there and which ones are being used. So if you need ideas, there's plenty of them here. And then one of the games, I thought I'd just show you a couple of the games. So Proofpoint has a Family Feud Cybersecurity Edition. And then this is a Jeopardy Labs game. So I do think the games are kind of a cool way of engaging your clubs. And I know clubs are definitely a challenge in at least the community college level in getting students engaged. Students are busy, they have full-time jobs. So some of these I think are just good independent type learning activities as well. Here's a whole bunch from the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency as well, some security awareness games. So I also put in a slide for if you have questions or have any other ideas and you want to contribute, please feel free to send them to me. I put my email there.
Thank you so much, Mary. Boy, you gave us a lot to dig into really quick. I'm trying to cut and paste and copy things as you were going through that. So thank you.
Well, I'm happy to share my slides. So just send me an email.
Great, we will do that. And Mary does have to run off, so we're going to, any questions you have for her, her email's in the chat, please go ahead and forward those to her and take advantage, give feedback if you do pursue any of these to make sure that we know kind of what we're using and how we're impacting and how we can build on this, because that's the whole goal of what we're doing. So I appreciate it, Mary. I hope you have a great day. We are going to move over to Miss Litany Lineberry. She, just like Renee, is on our steering committee, so we really appreciate you guys doing this. She's also going to defend her thesis here next month, and she teaches at Hines Community College and Voorhees University, so she has lots of extra time. Right, Lindy? But what is really neat is that she, because she's got such, that student and teacher perspective, she is going to present to us today on how TryHackMe and AWS for teaching in online courses. So Litany, over to you.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everybody see? I do want to go to my PowerPoint real quick. Okay, can everybody see this? Okay, awesome. So as Gretchen said, I'm going to talk about how you can incorporate AWS Educate and TryHackMe into your online cybersecurity course curriculum. So why is this important? One, cybersecurity threats that are increasing day to day, hour by hour. And so students really need to be prepared. And yes, theory is wonderful, but they also need that hands-on portion, practical portion as well, to go along with the knowledge that they also learn. So, and AWS Educate and TryHackMe does provide this. Okay. So what is AWS Educate? It's a free cloud learning platform for students. And Educator is a third party, so definitely check with your institution to see if you're allowed to use this or not, but definitely check with them on that. Provides AWS credits for hands-on practice and interactive lessons, and also have guided labs. And how to integrate it into your curriculum. I use it to teach cloud, so for like a week as an introduction into my courses, so use Cloud 101. I'm actually going to switch over now to show you. So when I put the website in the chat, but when you go to it, it does reroute you here. So don't be alarmed if it reroutes you here. It does do that. And you can either register for an account if you don't already have an account, and it is free to sign up for you and your students. Or if you already have an account, you can just sign in. So I already have an account and I signed in. And so this is what it looks like on this end. I have a couple of courses already in progress, but normally you will just see this part. And the first part is getting started. I like to use Introduction to Cloud 101, and then also move on to getting started with storage, but they have other items. And then also if you're teaching artificial intelligence or machine learning and trying to incorporate those sort of things, AWS Educate does have labs and classes for that. And these classes are self-paced. So usually with an online class, whether synchronous or asynchronous, usually give students about a week or so to do the work, depending on how long it may take. So for example, Introduction to Cloud Computing says it would take around 3 hours. And knowing that this is an introduction, depending on if this is for an intro to cybersecurity course or an advanced level, I would either give my students a week or 2 weeks to complete it. And what I love about this is there's different filters. So if you want them to earn a badge, then you can click that and click on the ones that will earn them a badge. And usually I have them upload that badge to the school that I use. We use Canvas. So they upload that to Canvas. And then you can also filter it by the different labs that they may have. And then also you can filter it by the different skill sets. So you're teaching, want to incorporate cloud computing or machine learning or networking infrastructure or just regular cybersecurity. You can select which ones will go with that. And then finally, the level. And then again, depending on your course, if you want something that will last them 5 hours versus 1 hour, you can sort it by that as well. And so I want to go into, this is how it looks whenever they register, and it gives them instructions, and then they can click on the modules. And so it's like any learning platform, and they go through, and then at the end, they take the exam or final assessment, and they earn their badge. Usually for most, like for the storage, they need to have at least a 70% or greater in order to get the badge. Okay. So this is how I incorporate AWS, and later on I'll show a slide that shows the curriculum and how I do it for that week. Okay. And again, I went over a cloud one-on-one overview, but it's basically a fundamentals on cloud fundamentals and also AWS services as well. So TryHackMe, again, is another third-party site, so please make sure that you ask your institutions. But what I like about this, it's an interactive cybersecurity training platform, and it covers a wide variety of topics, including ethical hacking, forensics, web security, and things like that. And it has hands-on virtual environments for real-world experience. For me, using TryHackMe, I use individual class courses within TryHackMe, but they also have learning paths and capture the flag challenges that you can use as well. And I'm going to go to that right now. And so it is free to sign up, and they do have free learning paths. And so you could do based on hands-on training, challenges, and things of that nature. And so you can just go, I like to go to search, and I usually go by subscription type and do free only, and then 5 rooms that are free that can be incorporated into my curriculum. And again, I will show the example of that curriculum a little later. And so again, using AWS Educate and TryHackMe together is important for students to have real world security training. And what I found is a lot of students don't have the capacity on their laptops sometimes to have virtual machines, to install VirtualBox or what have you, and actually install Kali Linux so they can do these things on their own. So these are great alternatives to that. And here's an example of how a weekly schedule may look for me to incorporate TryHackMe. So for example, I come up with a lecture, and then I do a lab, and that lab is from TryHackMe. And I usually, again, search through to see what items are free, that they don't have to get premium or what have you. And then they have to submit screenshots and reflections that have like actual prompt what they have to do. And then the same for the cloud computing. This is what one of the weeks would look like. And then again, down here, I also have like the due dates. So this is just an example of how I incorporate TryHackMe in my online course. So it's also within the syllabus. However, there are risks relying on TryHackMe and any third-party platforms. One, they are third parties, so they can change their policy, pricings. Some, for example, with TryHackMe, some rooms that were free may now you have to pay for it. So you can make sure that you go through each semester and even sometimes each week to make sure that, or before that next week starts, to make sure that the assignment that you have for TryHackMe is still accessible to students. And then looking at the availability and any restrictions. So cloud services like AWS may enforce regional restrictions, compliance, and changes. And then If TryHackMe shifts focus or discontinues the service, users must find alternative ways of using it. And again, it always goes back to making sure that your institution will also allow you to use AWS and TryHackMe in your classroom. So I like to send an email the semester before or toward the end of the previous semester before the next semester starts to get approval that I can in fact use this in my course. So again, AWS Educate Cloud 101 lays a great foundation for cloud security. TryHackMe enhances learning with hands-on cybersecurity exercises, and sign up for both AWS Educate and TryHackMe is free. And it really is easy to incorporate within your online course. So there is that. Is there any questions that anyone has? All right, thank you so much. If you have questions, I'll put my email in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Litany. And just to plug her for next month as well, she's going to be doing our Linux episode 2. So it's March 21st. She did our first Linux workshop last year. You can find it on YouTube. But we're also going to be doing another one, and she's going to be on that. So if you'd like to hear more about Linux and how she works it into her classes, you can join us again next month. So thank you. Next up, we have Alex Hillock from the Nice Challenge XPCyber team. He's going to be talking a little bit about some tools. I personally integrate some of these into my classes. So if you're looking for a lot of hands-on, which seems to be the theme of today, definitely check out their project and how they're going to work on it. But I'm going to turn it over to him to talk a little bit about what they're working on. Thank you for being here.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the introduction, Paige. As was mentioned, I am Alex, and I'm breaking form a little bit here. I am not an educator myself, but I'm hoping what I get to show off today will at least be of some use to all you educators out there. I am the content team lead and community manager. I do all the train the trainer sessions. So if anything I say is of any interest to anybody, I look forward to working with you in the future. So with that all out of the way, let's talk about the XPCyber range. So our whole goal here really is to bring the workforce, the cyber workforce experience before the workforce itself. And we try and do that through a multitude of different ways to pull that off. And I'll mention ahead of time, we are a totally free platform and we require 0 downloads. This can all be done on a web browser, all on a Chromebook, whatever you need. We were really about trying to remove these barriers to entry. So yeah, without further ado, let's kind of talk about how we bring that workforce experience. So I'm going to jump over here, and this is kind of just going to help me explain how this all works. And it all starts with these challenges that we create. And then these challenges are designed to essentially assess competency. And to do that, we take a look at these work roles that these frameworks have kind of prescribed out there. And through that view of a work role, we try and bring a task to life. So in the example I'm going to show today, a student will basically be dropped in or taking on the role of a system administrator. And then we're going to try and assess if they're competent in installing, updating, or troubleshooting a system or a server. So all that comes directly out of the framework itself, and then we get to have our fun. We get to start talking about immersion here. So to start, we set up this entire scenario, basically this backdrop to what the student's going to be essentially trying to solve. And in this example, we're saying, hey, DOS Webs, which is this fictional company, they just purchased a new server to run their production website on, but it's got the bare minimum of setup. So after an employee discovered this, we're going to ask you to start doing some things on that server itself. Now, that's all well and good. We've got the stage set. We have this scenario, but we like to dive a little bit deeper in that whole immersion, that complexity and depth. So moving right along, most labs, at least that I've experienced, were very niche. And while those definitely have their place, we're trying to make the student uncomfortable. We are going to drop them into a fully functional yet fictional business environment. And then what we expect is them to problem solve their way out of it. We don't want them to come in knowing everything because that's just not a realistic expectation in our view. We really are trying to just facilitate, hey, you know, even though you're unfamiliar, can you problem solve your way out of this? Not so much memorize a single solution and then keep trying to repeat that. We find that that just doesn't tend to last in this field. You always got to keep learning. You got to know how to solve problems. So this is one of the ways that we try and accomplish that. Now, another one, this is probably the favorite bit, is instead of step-by-step instructions, we've actually created fictional characters that have their own place within this company. And we simulate a conversation, basically what you might see in like a Slack or a Teams meeting, but they're having this back and forth. And what we're testing here is, hey, you know, as a student, can you pull out the important contextual details to get the job done? And sometimes not everything that somebody says is gonna be useful. That unfortunately is just the way it is. So here, not only are we trying to see if a student can pull out the important contextual details, but essentially, you know, can they do this without skimming? That tends to be one of the major kind of hangups when students are just kind of trying to slam through labs, is this is really kind of pumping the brakes and saying, hey, you know, we're really trying to immerse you in this experience, make sure you're paying attention. So in that vein of trying to bring the task to life, we have a couple things we're trying to do here. The first one is we're letting the student know, hey, this is what you're going to have to be working on, this production web server. We give an IP address and what subnet it's in, so they can cross-reference that network map to figure out, okay, this is the machine that I need to work in. And then on top of that, we're asking them to do a couple different things. So we have these checks up here. And this is an entirely automated system where you don't have to refresh the page, you don't have to click any buttons. It's just constantly monitoring end states. And in that same vein, we also, when we design these challenges, we're trying to be solution agnostic, right? Because there's not always just one way to solve a problem, there's multiple. So that's why we constantly look at end states instead of methods themselves. So let's go ahead and kind of pull out the important details here. One of the first two tasks that we're going to go for is, hey, this person here needs a new account on the web server itself. We also give the naming scheme for creating that account name. And on top of that, they need to give sudo/administrator privileges. So students read through this, they feel like they're ready to go. Now they're off to the races. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a console here. Again, trying to avoid any downloads, anything like that. And they are dropped in. This is up to them to figure out how to do it. Now, the example I showed today is fairly easy. We do have we have about 150 different pieces of content here, all these challenges with these kind of work role / task related focuses. But they got to figure this out. So now that I'm here and kind of short on time, I'm going to go ahead and log in and I'm going to do these tasks real quick here. So I'm going to say, okay, I need to add a user account. I could go and Google that real fast and I'll probably find a result really quick. One of the tools, at least the one that I'm familiar with, is the user add utility. So I'll do that and then I'll do the account name itself. And then boom, I'm good to go. One of the next steps was to give sudo/administrator privileges. So another way to pull that off, sometimes I'll see users basically edit the sudoers file, which is all well and good. But if I notice here, we also have a group that I could add that user to. So it's really trying to show off, hey, look, if a student wants to give direct sudo privileges, that's fine. But if you want to add them to that sudo group, you could basically say, okay, let's do that instead. I'll do the sudo user mod. I want to add to the group wheel the G Thatcher account. And that will also accomplish the objective. So really, we're just about that student freedom to figure something out on their own, not try and memorize a specific process here. So I'll jump back to the range here. Again, didn't need to refresh the page. These checks take about a minute to update, but once they're done, there's one more thing we ask of them. And we're pretty big on this, but it's essentially to document their methodology. Now, once they've gone through all that, what does that mean to you as an instructor? Well, after they've completed the task and they submitted their attempt, we generate this fully detailed report on all that went on. So in this example that I have pulled up here, student took about 22 minutes to pull this off. They got all the checks. If I look over at this time bar graph, this is probably the best bit of information here because it'll give you a lens into where a student may be excelling or struggling on a specific task. Maybe you could give them extra guidance on, hey, you know, it took you a lot longer to figure out how to update a certain package or how to update the system. So you can give them resources to kind of facilitate that learning where they may be struggling. And then on top of that, I have a nice little example of the documentation that a student may be providing. So in this example, the student was saying, here's the modifications. I created the user account. I provided new privileges, but you'll notice here, we've got a little red blip on the chart. And the reason for that is they said, well, first I did the sudoers config file, but I removed them after finding a better method. So this is really just a real quick summary of the report that you instructors can use to essentially kind of get an idea of where a student's at. You know, we're all here to kind of assess this competency. So yeah, that's the report. On top of that, you can also provide feedback to the student asynchronously. So yeah, we're really hoping that this platform is useful. Again, it is totally free. And beyond that, if anything I said was of any interest today, all you have to do is navigate to this xpcyber.com website. And down kind of in the middle of the page here, we have a get started link. So that's it for me. Thank you for your time. And if anyone has any questions, I'm here to answer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions? Okay, cool. Thank you so much for being on. If anybody does have questions, there's breakout rooms available. And also if anybody wants to share emails in the chat, feel free. But thank you again. So next up, we have James Ashley from CSUSB. He's going to be talking a little bit about the TryHackMe challenges. This is another great hands-on piece. I use this for club activities and also for events. We actually just did one with the TryHackMe challenges at our cyber center here at Towson, where we tried to get people to fall in love with cyber. So this is a great tool. I'm going to turn it over to him. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you very much, Paige. So hello, everybody. Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. As Paige mentioned, I'm James Ashley. I am the Director of Research and Development at the Cyber and AI Center at California State University, San Bernardino. And I participate in a lot of different CAE-funded activities, including XPCyber, which you just saw. And this is another tool that we've built here at our center called TryHackMe, and we built this alongside CISA, who currently continues to fund this. And like XPCyber, it's free to use, but this one doesn't actually require you to sign up or be an educator. This one is free for anyone to use so long as they're in the United States. They just navigate to trycyber.us. And they can come here and do what are generally we refer to as micro challenges. And so the purpose of TryHackMe is to allow kind of people off the street, people in kind of their late stage of high school or in the early stage of their college career to learn about and discover and explore the cyber work roles. Unlike the medical field that has the advantage for the average person to interact with different specialties in medicine and then learn about them, like, you know, lots of people know what a dentist is or pediatrics or stuff like that. Cyber doesn't have that benefit. Most people don't know what a network administrator does or what a system security analyst is. And that includes, students. Lots of students graduate with their degrees and do not know what cyber work role they even are interested in operating in. And that's a huge problem. We want to kind of curb that, and that's one of the main reasons why we built TryHackMe. So again, kind of, you don't really need anything special to do TryHackMe. You just need a desktop or a laptop, a keyboard and a mouse and an internet connection, and a modern web browser. So if we pop over here, we can see there's I think 12 different challenges here and 10 different work roles from the NICE framework that we currently cover. And each one of these should be able to be done by just about anybody so long as they're capable of using a mouse, keyboard, and a web browser, because we kind of hold their hand along the way and try to give them information about that work role. So I already have one of them deployed. They only take about a minute to deploy, but we only have 10 minutes here, so I didn't want to waste any time. The one we're looking at today is the system security analysis work role, and we're going to be assisting a mentor apply a security policy to a workstation. And then there's the nice framework task ID right there. So we have this open over here. So the way this works is, and again, the way that we kind of hold their hand and making sure that anyone can do these, is we have these work role mentors who are going to be talking to us through this text chat interface, and they're going to be kind of pulling us along to help them accomplish a particular task. So in this case, we're going to be applying a security policy. And when I say, we want to try and make sure everyone can do these, we recognize that. So obviously we have a Linux VM over here that we give them access to. And this is a real Linux VM. This isn't some fancy, JavaScript thing that's gonna, you're gonna try to do one command that isn't in the list here and it's not gonna do it. This is a real VM with real tools on it. But we recognize that lots of students who are coming to this for the first time or people retooling or reskilling haven't even used a Linux terminal before. So we try to give them these, we try to give them the primer necessary to kind of get them going on that. So we start telling them about what a terminal is, what a command line interface is. We try to lead them through, how to get started here, really trying to pull them along and start getting them comfortable with the basic tools they're going to need to accomplish this challenge. If someone who's doing one of these challenges already knows how to do this, when they select which text option, they don't have to pick the tutorial. They can skip this whole tutorial if they're, I'm already, familiar with the terminal, for example. And I'm going to turn this chat speed up so we're not waiting for the typing here. And we try to give them these little wins, as we call them. Oops, if I could type correctly. That make them understand, like, okay, I'm typing these commands in. I'm hitting enter. It's giving me this output. This is what it should look like. Trying to give them these little wins to try and make them understand and feel comfortable with the terminal. So let's move forward here and look at one of the first part of the task here. So we're going to kind of tell them, okay, our job at this MSP, and it's described earlier in the thing that they work at a managed service provider, that they're going to be, this is the kind of work we do here. This is what we're going to do today. This is why it's critical. All that kind of stuff. And then we're going to be applying a security policy to this workstation. We try to inject little cyber lessons along the way, talking about confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And then we're going to get into actually talking about STIGs in this particular micro challenge, which are created by DISA. So we have this STIG here that we're going to have them basically be applying to this workstation that we're on here. So I'm not going to go through all the text here, but basically she indicates that we want to be looking at this PDF. We tell them where to find that PDF, where to focus on in that PDF. We talk about how to kind of read the STIG, and then we talk about the policy in the STIG and, reading through it, understanding it, what to type into the CLI to, produce certain parts of it here. And then they ask us to actually implement a fix. So let's go down here. So basically they find by looking at this STIG, this is not the case. The encryption method isn't what it should be. So if we go ahead and do that here. Let's see. Oops. Okay, and then we can see that based on what the STIG is telling us that, oh, this is set to something it shouldn't be. It should be this. So now she's telling us, okay, this is bad. Let's go in and fix that. And then she explains how we might do that. And again, and we have these automated checks down here that determine whether or not they've accomplished that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quick. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to find, I think she tells us how to find that, but, and you can ask for help too. At certain parts of these, we provide them kind of a help situation. So if they're like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing still, she'll give you even more assistance on the first of the two objectives. On the second objective, the participant always needs to kind of use what they learned in the first objective to accomplish the second objective, and they're always basically doing a very similar thing. So in this case, in the second objective, they'd also be opening this file. We're told line 200, and she tells us how we might find it. We could find and then in ripped method. Oh, let's do what she says all the way there. Okay, here we go. Do we need to change this to SHA 512, I believe? Yeah. And then we need to save it and then close it. Okay. And I believe that's what we do. They tell us what it should look like. And then we can see down here, this task has changed from red to green. Okay. And then if we were to accomplish the rest of the challenge, the second one would go green, and then we'd get a little, hooray, you accomplished it correctly. So this is an example of what one of these micro challenges looks like. Each one of these micro challenges should only take about 20 minutes to do. After the micro challenge, there's going to be a bunch of different resources. A lot of them are from CISA for kind of next steps. If you're interested in learning more about the work role you just completed a micro challenge in, there's a link to the Cyber Career Pathway tool that is on the CISA NICS portal here for that work role. So if you click that, it'll open you to this CISA Career Pathway tool. It'll be open to the work role that you just did a micro challenge for, and it'll talk to them about like what that work role does, what kind of the job titles you might see for that work role, what other tasks they might be responsible for, and all that kind of good stuff. And then there's some other things in here. If you're education and training options through CISA, there's the institution map for the CAE community, all sorts of next step resources that might be useful to someone who just did this and thought, okay, that was great. I want to know more about that work role, or how I might, pursue that as a career. And there's these two buttons up here, try more, that'll just take you back to the interface. And like I said, there's a bunch of different work roles in here, and we're actually in the process of developing 15 or 16 more of these micro challenges right now with CISA that are going to be in even more work roles within the NICE framework. So hopefully that kind of, this is a great tool. It's easy to use, easy to get to, no signups, nothing complicated. You just, click, deploy, and go. If you have any questions or comments about it, feel free to reach out to me or ask me questions here. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Are there any questions for James? What a great tool. I know the problem's going to be you're going to watch all these videos, and then where do you start, right? What do you use first, and how do you put it in place? But James, if you could just stick your contact information in the chat, that would be great, and we'll make sure to get it out to all of our participants. So last but certainly not least, I am very excited to introduce Dan Olson from my own University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. Dan is one of our amazing cyber policy, law, and digital forensics in our College of Public Service. We talked a lot about interdisciplinary today, and that's something at UCCS we're really proud to practice. Dan is probably one of the favorite cyber professors out there on our campus, and his enthusiasm is contagious. And so I'm really excited that he's going to close us out today with Cybersecurity Law 101. So Dan, over to you.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I think I'll go ahead and do a little screen share. And let's see. Hopefully you can all see that, right? All right. Well, so folks, I have been teaching in higher ed for many years now, and for the last couple of years, I've been really doing cybersecurity law and policy, cyber crime, advanced cyber crime, and a lot of things on the law side. And so hopefully just a different way of thinking about teaching cyber here. As you see on the top of the slide there, we have a lot of technical tools that we want to teach our students, right? Firewalls, malware, VPN encryption, active scanning, integrity analysis, but we also, folks, have a lot of non-technical tools like law and policy, right? Education and training, these sorts of things. And so I thought we'd focus in on laws today. In cybersecurity, we have two types of law. We have laws that make us do stuff and laws that prohibit us from doing stuff. And so you could go either way in your classroom, but you could look at a law like HIPAA. And HIPAA says, you know, healthcare providers, you've got all this electronic data. Why don't you keep it safe? Why don't you have some firewalls and some encryption and such, right? On the flip side, we have proscriptive laws, laws that make hacking illegal. How about that, right? And so this is what I thought we'd focus on today. The main law that I thought I'd share is the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1986. And what it does is make several sort of hacking-like behaviors illegal. And you can find that at 18, so Title 18, US Code, Section 130. And if you pull that up right now, you can see 7 different crimes. And so, folks, you know, we definitely want to teach folks about sound cybersecurity practice, but we can also use criminal law and policies to work towards cybersecurity goals, right? You know, criminal law focuses on things like deterring hacking and cyber attacks, right? Incapacitation, making it so that folks can't do those attacks anymore. Punishment, rehabilitation, and trying to make victims of cyber attacks whole again. And so, again, if you were to look at this law, it would have 7 main sections. But, you know, somebody hacks into your email account and snoops through your emails or photos. That's illegal, right? 1030A2. Somebody puts some malware on your system or does a denial of service attack. That's also illegal, 1030A5. And hopefully you're seeing how much fun you can have with these laws. Your students will go, what? That was illegal? What? Because they've probably done some of these behaviors. So, you know, the way I like to teach criminal law is through scenarios. And this is something you can do from elementary to middle school to high school to college first years to college seniors. I do it in all of those formats and students really enjoy it. And so what you do is you give them a little scenario and you appoint them the role of the judge, jury, defense attorney. You have them read up on the CFAA, maybe explore the different crimes, and then you give them a fact pattern as you see at the bottom. What crime would you charge? What sentence would you impose? Maybe you compare that with a few similar real world cases to see how close they got. And they will have immense fun with this, folks, as will you. So this is a scenario that I use pretty regularly in my class, right? Professor Olson sends his ex an email. It's got a file that says, sorry, I really love you. She clicks on it, hoping they might reconcile. It secretly installs a keystroke logger and allows him to explore files on the C drive. He finds all kinds of stuff, pictures, diary entries. He says, gotcha. If you don't send me $1 million right now, I'm sharing this with the whole world. He also finds, you know, on her hard drive, a list of passwords unencrypted, like Amazon PW123. So he logs in and buys a bunch of stuff. He also sells her Netflix password to some friends who can't afford Netflix. Okay, crazy little fact pattern. I just made it up, right? And so you can make up fact patterns just like this, but you get your students and you say, what crimes have been committed here? And watch them go. Just so you know, there's about 5 crimes here. I won't go through every single one of them, but there is password trafficking, there is malware, there is unauthorized access to digital information, there's 1030A4 fraud upon Amazon. And so, you know, what sentence? I could probably ask you that question right now. Look at this fact pattern, Paige, and tell me what should happen to Professor Olson. That's a bad dude, right? Some of you would say 5 years in jail. Some of you would say 1 year in jail. Some of you would say rehabilitation. And you'd all be right, right? And because you want to think about what's going to deter Olson and others, what's going to make justice for the victim, what could incapacitate me? maybe 3 years of probation with no computers. How about that, right? And so we want to think about all these kinds of things. And you can set up a group discussion that'll last 20 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and then of course debrief it with your class. And break them into small groups, see who came up with the best approach, the right approach, of course, air quotes, because there is none, right? And you just really got to think about what crimes. So you compare this fact pattern with the law, and then you compare it with, the purposes of sentencing. And so hopefully you can see students will have immense amount of fun with this. And you can do as many or as few, and they will have a great time. I use this fact pattern in a multitude of classes. I have a variety of versions of it. I just made it up. It's not real, but I put myself in there because they like it. But folks, it's easy to find fact patterns so you can that prompt, you can make that a homework assignment. Say, take this home, write a 1-page essay on what crimes were committed and what should the punishment be. There's a homework assignment they will actually have fun with. You can make them up. You can pull real cases right off the internet. Just go to the tech page of any website or any cybersecurity journal and just take those fact patterns. I posted a resource here, a really cool one. This is the DOJ Guide to Prosecuting Cybercrimes. Yeah, it is 213 pages long, but in there is a bunch of fact patterns. And it says, hey, prosecutor, what crime was committed and what should the sentence be? You can pluck those out, use them right in your class. You can assign this. I assign students to read from here all the time. And I put a little link in there for you. And so, there's so many different ways to go here. You can also get creative. You can say, hey, Professor Olson got convicted of violating 1038.5 and he got 20 years in the slammer. What did he do that led to that? Then they'll be like, oh man, he designed a new virus and it went like this and it did this and that. That's what got him in there in the first place. You can give them a scenario with some defenses, right? Maybe one of the more famous, so the first person ever prosecuted for cybercrime was Robert Morris, now Dr. Morris, right? For the Morris worm. And you can give them that fact pattern, have them impose a sentence, and then compare it with the real sentence, right? So you could look up Melissa virus, you could look up the I love you virus and see what happened, and just have your students work through those fact patterns and figure out what crimes were committed. So Mr. Morris said, I didn't really need it, and I was kind of authorized to do it. The jury did not believe him. But a lot of these times, we've got defenses, Mr. Olson comes to your house to try to fix your computer. He installs a patch, your computer crashes. Well, I didn't mean to crash your computer. I was just a lousy coder. Have them feel the difference between that and like intentionally crashing your computer, right? And so notice all of these ideas can introduce a lot of tech concepts, right? You saw in my previous slide some vulnerabilities. Amazon PW123, who does that, right? Who stores their passwords in an unencrypted sticky note, right? And so, of course, we all probably do, but we should probably be using a password manager or encrypting those kind of things. And, maybe we could set up a fraud alert and things like this. So you can use scenarios just like this to incorporate a lot of different cybersecurity terms, right? Any cybercrime, how'd they do it? Well, they exploited a vulnerability, and I hope we patch it later, right? And so just fact-based scenarios, and this is probably not new for most of you, but really effective, and you have immense amount of creativities. And like we said, all you need is a piece of paper for this one. All you need to do is tell them a story and have them tell you what crime and what punishment. And I do a lot of this, and students really, really enjoy it from all different levels. There is my email. I haven't been tracking the chat closely, but feel free to holler at me anytime. I think I am the last presentation, and I hope I didn't go over time too much. So I will stop there. Gretchen, if that's okay, and if that's what we were looking for, and all those questions.
Dan, thank you so much. Yes, I think it's always so important to talk about how cyber touches all different parts of what we do and what we teach. And I think you've done a particularly effective job of getting students who were all in that law track to say, ooh, law and cyber, this is cool. Let's check it out. So thank you so much for your presentation. Any questions for Dan?